Mr. Speaker, first I want to say today that I am privileged to speak from the seat of the majority leader. Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, even when I sat on the seat, it is very warm, Mr. Speaker, unlike mine, which was very cold, Mr. Speaker. I didn't know the seats of Parliament have different warmth, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I don't foresee myself leaving this seat anytime soon. I don't see myself leaving this one anytime. But having said, Mr. Speaker, as you are aware and as you have alluded to, Mr. Speaker, there is a court ruling. A ruling of court consisting of 3-judge bench, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a court ruling has only got 2 decisions, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it. One is to obey it, and secondly, if you have any avenue of appeal, you exercise that right of appeal, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it, Mr. Speaker. And the court ruling, what we went as Azimio after the election, after your decision here, Mr. Speaker, what took us to court was for the court to interpret for us the constitutionality of your decision on who's the majority party and who's the minority party in this House, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of the Speaker came in as obiter, Mr. Speaker. But what took us to court, we wanted to know, because when we arrived here after the election, we arrived here knowing very well that we are the majority party, Mr. Speaker. And we are the numbers. But midway, we ended up losing numbers through your ruling, Mr. Speaker. And that is what took us to court, to ascertain whether we are the majority and whether we are the minority. And luckily, the court has made its ruling, albeit late, Mr. Speaker. We expected this ruling much earlier than this time, Mr. Speaker. But it is better late than never. The decision arrived, and the decision has said that the Azimio party is the majority party in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And I so happen to be the minority leader as of now, Mr. Speaker. So today afternoon, I just switched seats and I took over the role of majority leader, Mr. Speaker. And I am capable of doing that work, Mr. Speaker. I have the capacity, I have the qualifications, I have the capabilities, I have the numbers in the House, Mr. Speaker, to lead, Mr. Speaker. I have everything what it takes, Mr. Speaker, to be the majority leader of this House, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the issue that we need to exercise, to analyze, Mr. Speaker, is that, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. Mr. Speaker, court rulings are very important, Mr. Speaker. You remember after the election, we disputed the result of the election. We ended up filing a court case in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court pronounced itself that we did not win the election, and the other party won the election, and we abided by it, and we respected the court ruling, Mr. Speaker. This court ruling also must be respected, Mr. Speaker. Because it's not like any other court ruling, Mr. Speaker. It's a ruling of the Court of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this ruling cannot be taken jokingly, Mr. Speaker. When I went through it last evening, Mr. Speaker, these judges are raising very serious fundamental issues. They are raising issues relating to violation of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And you remember we impeached someone here because he violated the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if this matter is not addressed, we are going to have a constitutional crisis in this country, Mr. Speaker. So for that reason, Mr. Speaker, jurisdictions all over the world and democracies all over the world that we borrowed from, even this presidential system that we are running today, that is running in this country, Mr. Speaker. In the United States, there are times when the executive is from the Republican Party and the House is ruled by the Democratic Party, and life goes on. It doesn't matter that we are going to oppose everything that the government wants to do. If government brings here bills and policies that are of benefit to the country, we will support it, Mr. Speaker. And as you know now, many things have gone under the bridge. There is this animal called also broad-based, Mr. Speaker. We want to broaden, deepen, and tighten this relationship, Mr. Speaker. If I may borrow your words, we want to broaden it, deepen it, and tighten it, Mr. Speaker, so that we can have a country that is cohesive, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is no way we are going to have this animal in place, and then when we want to become the majority, people look at us with suspicious eyes. How can it be, Mr. Speaker? Members of Parliament are members of Parliament. They work under the Article 95 of the Constitution, which has given them the roles of oversight, legislation, and representation, Mr. Speaker. We are not going to do our business outside Article 95, Mr. Speaker. So, I want to allay fears here that the majority in the House must be from the ruling party. That this ruling is giving us posterity. This is doing things for posterity, Mr. Speaker. Next election, or the other election in 2032, a government might come in place where the president garners the majority votes and is elected as the president, but he will not have numbers in Parliament. His numbers might be few in Parliament, and he becomes a minority. So this is now the trend we are setting, that Parliament is independent, judiciary is independent, executive is independent. We have no problem with the executive to do their work, and we know the President of the Republic of Kenya as of today is Honorable William Samoei Ruto, Mr. Speaker. There is no doubt about that. So there should be no ambiguity and doubt that the majority leader in the National Assembly is Honorable Junet Mohammed, the Member of Parliament for Sunai, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. And I am going to serve the country diligently, Mr. Speaker, without any fear and favor, Mr. Speaker. I am a seasoned politician. I am serving my third term in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I know how Parliament operates. I know how Parliament does its work. And I understand how bills are done in this Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I have gained enough experience. So this mindset,
wind up,
Mr. Speaker, this mindset that the ruling party must have majority in Parliament for them to do the executive work of the country, Mr. Speaker, that mindset must be gotten rid of, Mr. Speaker. We must emulate democracies that have matured over 200 years, Mr. Speaker. In the last election, in the last administration of Biden in America, Mr. Speaker,
wind up.
The Republican Party was controlling the House, Mr. Speaker, and the Democratic Party was controlling the Senate, and life was going on as usual, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, my advice to the House and to Parliament in general is that the only solution to this problem is to go to appeal. Until the appeal overturns this matter, I shall be recognized as the majority leader of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Those few remarks, I conclude.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me first welcome members back to the House after the long recess and join you in thanking members even for showing up during the special sitting last month. Honorable Speaker, I also take cognizance of the issues before you and before the House. Let me start on a light note, Honorable Speaker, by saying to my brother, Honorable Junet, he said that this seat seems to be warm. And this seat is a seat like any other in this House. I know in a presidential system, Honorable Speaker, any member can sit anywhere. And if the Honorable Junet feels this seat is warmer than his, we must make sure that we warm Junet's seat wherever he sits so that he feels the warmth of the House. Honorable Speaker, the matter before us is a straightforward matter. And I want to agree with many of the things that have been said, including what the Honorable Karoli Omondi has just said, that the import of this court ruling has nothing to do with past decisions of this House over the last 2 years. Because decisions of the House, whether it is legislation, whether it is approvals that we make, are not made by a party. Neither are they made as business owned by the leader of the
Bensouda, you can't just dash across the floor like that. Order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Bensouda is not used to sitting on this side of the House, so we may forgive her. Honorable Speaker, I was saying that decisions of the House are decisions of Parliament. That is why when we move a bill, a government bill, moved by the leader of majority, when it is approved by the House and enacted as law, it becomes an act of Parliament, not an act of the leader of majority or an act of the government of Kenya. It becomes an act of Parliament. And therefore, all previous decisions made by this House have been decisions of the House, and the House subsists as it were
I have the floor.
on the 9th of August 2022, as it is today, Honorable Speaker, with the unfortunate loss of one or two of our members who have lost, one through a by-election and one by passing on. Honorable Speaker, we also have a very good constitution, Honorable Speaker. And as much as I respect the decision of the court, I completely disagree with the court in many aspects, and some of which have been touched on. I do not want to dwell on to them, Honorable Speaker. But the question that we need to ask you, Honorable Speaker, and ask ourselves, what is it out of the 34 prayers? Honorable Speaker, there is a lot of loud consultations behind me.
Order, members.
I was saying,
Order.
Honorable Speaker, the gentleman who went to court with a total of 34 prayers before the court. Amongst those prayers was a declaration by the court that the Azimio coalition be declared as a majority party, and the leader of the Azimio coalition in parliament be declared as the majority leader in the House. The court declined to give that declaration or that ruling. The only ruling out of the 34, Honorable Speaker, that was given by the court was to annul your ruling of October 2022. And the import of that annulment, Honorable Speaker, when they said that they found it to be unconstitutional, null and void, the import of that is we go back to the status quo as at 9th of August 2022.
It's called status quo ante.
Status quo ante, Honorable Speaker. You know, I'm only an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, Honorable Speaker. But at least, I also know, Honorable Speaker, because I studied in commercial law, in my accounting studies, the doctrine of ultra vires, where anything that is ultra vires the Constitution, any
Give him a minute.
any statute, Honorable Speaker, or any act of parliament that is inconsistent with the Constitution is null and void to the extent of that inconsistency. And I was saying we have a beautiful Constitution because this Constitution gives powers, or rather powers to enjoy rights, including the right of association, which is the most important thing in our Constitution. Chapter 4 is what, Chapter 4 for Constitution on the Bill of Rights is what has built our Constitution as amongst the most progressive constitutions in the world. Therefore, the members, the 14 members in question, Honorable Speaker, from UDM, PA, MDDG, MCCP, enjoy certain rights that not an act of parliament can take away from them, including the right to associate. No court, no law can tell the member for Ugenya, MDDG, that he must remain in Azimio. There is no court, no act of parliament, including the Political Parties and the Political Parties Coalition Act that was acrimoniously passed in this House at the tail end of the last parliament, can force the 8 members of UDM to associate with Azimio. That cannot happen, Honorable Speaker, and that is why, to a large extent, I disagree with the court, because those 14 members enjoy certain inalienable rights to enjoy their rights of association, to associate with the political coalition they desired. And they told us here, Honorable Speaker, letters were tabled, including letters, Honorable Speaker, that I have seen from the Registrar of Political Parties, ascertaining that MDDG, UDM, PA, Maendeleo Chap have left Azimio. The leader of Jubilee Party in this House, Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Sabina Chege, has today enjoys a position as a whip of an independent parliamentary political party called Jubilee. On that basis, Honorable Speaker, Jubilee then cannot and shall not and shall never be counted as part of Azimio. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, what, Honorable Speaker, we are inviting you to make a decision on the status quo ante. On status quo ante, Honorable Speaker, it is up to you as a speaker to now make a fresh ruling, since you are ruling.
Yes, Junet.
Mr. Speaker, it is not my intention to interrupt
You have already done so.
Yeah, my colleague, Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
the minority leader. Mr. Speaker, is it correct, Mr. Speaker, for the minority leader to mislead the House that those parties who are members of Azimio cannot be forced to stay in Azimio, Mr. Speaker? To that extent, Mr. Speaker, there is a procedure of getting out of Azimio, Mr. Speaker. They have not followed the procedure, Mr. Speaker, and I can tell you I'm the Secretary General of Azimio, Mr. Speaker. They only wrote letters to me. They never followed the procedure, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I can see David Ochieng wants to respond to me. That's one member party, Mr. Speaker. We're going to discuss in this, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Honorable Junet. Don't disparage your colleagues. You are better than that. Kimani Ichung'WA, you have 1 minute.
Honorable Speaker, so that I do not waste a lot of time, I was saying that what you are being called upon to determine from the status quo ante is as we speak now, because your decision or your ruling of October has been annulled by the court. Respect to that court ruling is paramount, and you must respect it. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, myself, in respect of that court ruling, today, I have appeared here and decided to sit with my brother, Honorable Junet, wherever I can sit, Honorable Speaker, because that ruling being annulled now calls on you to now look at the facts as they are today and numbers as they are. Honorable Speaker, you know, last week we got letters from the clerk's office, myself and the Honorable Junet Mohammed, to submit names for the House Business Committee. And it is important to note, Honorable Speaker, that both of us have since submitted names to the House Business Committee, names which appear on the order paper today, both from the minority side and from the majority side, Honorable Speaker. And when we did that, Honorable Speaker, we were cognizant, because we did the letters, some as late as yesterday, of the court ruling. I therefore want to ask you, Honorable Speaker, as you make your decision on this matter, to look at all the facts as they are. The 14 contentious slots in Azimio, and I agree with Honorable Junet, there was a process of getting out of Azimio. That process, has it been followed? Are there letters? Because, Honorable Speaker, I have seen letters that confirm that UDM, MCCCP, PA, MDDG have left Azimio. The Honorable Sabina Chege, Honorable Speaker, I am speaking about the letters, Honorable Speaker, that I have, which I will table before the House, Honorable Speaker, because I have copies in the office from the Registrar of Political Parties. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to beg of you that as you make that decision, look at those facts. Also, Honorable Speaker, look at the facts that today, Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Osoro did submit a letter to you on my nomination and election as a leader of majority in September of 2022, signed and assented to by over 171 members of this House. The Honorable Junet Mohammed, late last year, after the Honorable Pio left, did submit the whip.
Yes, wind up.
The Honorable Junet Mohammed, in his nomination as the leader of minority, did submit a letter nominating him upon election by Azimio coalition as the minority leader, signed by a paltry 80 members of the Azimio coalition. Actually less than even what is provided for in our own standing orders, Honorable Speaker. Less than what is provided for in our standing orders, because our standing orders have a certain threshold as to who and how many members should have elected you as a minority leader, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, it is my humble submission that you have facts on your table, make a ruling when the time comes.